What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in for another edition of the NFL Draft Show here on the Grueling Truth, where legends speak. My name is Dan Kornhauser.
And I'm Sam Teets.
And I want to thank you guys for tuning in for our second part of a three-part series where Sam and I give you our rankings position by position, all the positions. We break them down. We give you our rankings, top 10, give or take, depending on the position. And we break it down. So let's jump right into it. Before we do, I just want to remind you guys that we're brought to you by betting.net. And betting.net is your best bet for sports books and casino sites. So head on over to betting.net. Now, our last show, we covered quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. This show, we're going to be going over the offensive line, interior, and the offensive tackles, as well as the defensive line and edge rushers. And there's going to be a lot to talk about. We haven't really broken down all these positions in depth as much as we have, quarterback, receiver, etc. So I'm ready. I'm excited. Let's jump right into it. Let's start on the interior of the offensive line. And this group of linemen is very interesting for me this year because there's a lot of offensive tackles in the class that could very well move inside. There's guards that will probably move to center. And then there's guys who can play pretty much damn near every position on the line. But let's go with the interior. And there's really one guy at the top everybody knows about, Tyler Linderbaum. I'm going to assume that he is your top interior offensive lineman as well.
Yeah, he's a top interior offensive line for me, and a top 10 player on my board.
Perfect. So, we'll start there. That's out the way. I have him 15th on my board, but outside of Linderbaum, because actually we have talked about Linderbaum a bit in previous episodes, and he's pretty much the only interior offensive lineman we've given love to so far. But besides him, give me your top 10 interior offensive linemen, Sam.
All right, so we already mentioned Linderbaum 1. My number 2, Zion Johnson from Boston College. Number 3, Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. 4 is Tyler Smith from Tulsa. 5 is Jamari Salyer from Georgia. 6 is Darian Kennard from Kentucky. 7 is Dylan Parham from Memphis, someone who I've gotten to love a lot more along the process. 8 is Zach Tom from Wake Forest. 9 is Sean Ryan from UCLA. And then number 10, this will probably surprise people, it's Luke Fortner from Kentucky, with Luke Gadecki from Central Michigan, only 2 spots behind my board at 11.
You said Fortner was your number 10, the center from
Fortner's
Kentucky?
my number 10. Yeah, Fortner's 10. Luke Gadecki from Central Michigan is 11. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but what else is new?
Oh,
it wouldn't be an episode of the NFL Draft Show if we didn't get a few names wrong.
Oh, that's what we do here, baby. So, all right. So let's go down this list one more time because I missed one. I missed who your number 4 was.
Number 4 is Tyler Smith from from Tulsa, excuse me.
Tyler Smith. Okay, so let's go down this list one more time. You got 1 Linderbaum, 2 Zion Johnson, 3 Kenyon Green, 4 Tyler Smith, 5 Jamari Salyer, 6 Darian Kennard, 7 Dylan Parham, 8 Zach Tom, 9 you said Sean Ryan, Rihanna, and 10 was Luke Fortner, yeah?
Correct.
All right, perfect. So let's break that down real quick. You said Linderbaum was your highest rated prospect on the interior. You said he was the 10th overall prospect on your board?
8th.
8th overall prospect on your board. Now, let's talk about that real quick a little bit because Linderbaum is someone who's being seen as kind of dropping down a little bit. And the rumors that are circulating, I don't know how much I believe them because it is lying season, but the recent rumors sound like Linderbaum's dropping for a couple of reasons. One, because positionally, centers are not typically that highly sought after at the top of the draft. Interior offensive linemen in general are not. So part of it is a positional issue. Part of it seems to be his measurables in that he's short arms, lightweight for the position. Not overly physical, not nothing like that really stands out apparently to some NFL teams. And it sounds like he's dropping into the first round. And I mean, one rumor I heard was a possibility of him slipping out of the first round altogether, which I think is tomfoolery. It sounds awful. You know what? This is the first one. Okay, this is the first one of the episode. Derek is making an appearance real surely. All right, because these rumors of Tyler Linderbaum dropping out of the first round, I'm disgusted. That's a 100% pineapples, piñas, ananas. I hate it. I need an adult. What are your thoughts on it? Because Derek and I are fucking disgusted.
Yeah. I find it hard to believe Linderbaum's going to fall out of the first round. Now, there is some legitimate issues you could take with his measurements. I mean, in terms of percentiles for an offensive lineman, he's 6th percentile for height, 5th percentile for weight, 1st percentile for wingspan, and 1st percentile for arm length. So you can have problems with that. I understand that. But, and granted, I've only been doing this a couple of years, so it's not like I have a huge library to pull from. But my understanding is he's the best offensive line or best center prospect in the past 10 years, arguably. I mean, we're talking generational guys. It's probably Linderbaum's at the top of the list at the center spot, and then maybe Hamilton after that at safety, if we're trying to figure out who would be considered a quote-unquote generational prospect this year. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not saying I'm not saying he is. That's just someone who would be in the conversation for such a thing. But yeah, I think Linderbaum really. I mean, like I said, the tape doesn't lie. Like, I'd go on the tape first and then the measurables. I understand the measurables are pretty damning for him, but at the same time, his tape is so good. I find it hard to believe he'll fall outside the first round. And if he does, he's not going to get outside the top 40 picks.
So, I'm happy to hear that we're in agreement here. And Joseph Michael says, Dan, turn that pineapple upside down. So I did. That's what we do on this show. You want it. You got it. And he left us another comment before we move forward. He goes, who was that from Alabama, Sam? Alabama.
I don't believe I had anyone from Bama.
Yeah, I don't think he had anyone. He definitely didn't have anyone from Bama in his top 10 interior linemen. But yeah, now I'm confused. Thanks, Joe. Thanks a lot, bud. Anyway, so yeah, all right. So aside from Linderbaum, because we both agree on that front, the tape doesn't lie. Everything we've seen thus far doesn't lie. Neither one of us are buying this. Yeah. Complete smoke
neither
screen.
one of us buying this.
Okay, so let's move on from Linderbaum because he's gotten more than enough love on this show over the past couple of months. So let's shift gears. All right, so he is your top center prospect, and it looks like there's only one other center in your top 10, and that's Luke Fortner. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe there's some teams who have thought about putting Dylan Parham as a center. I don't think he played center at all from what I see at Memphis, so I don't know necessarily why that's coming out about, but I guess there's some teams that thinking maybe he'll play center at the next level. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I'd play him at guard. Yeah,
I think Dylan Parham is a guard, and I mean I've seen some things as well that maybe the teams aren't moving to center. I'm not buying that at all. Not because I don't think he can do it. It's just there's no need to get cute. It might add to his value because we know teams don't carry a lot of offensive linemen. Typically during the season, they might carry 7, max 8. Pretty much, if they have guys who start the season on the injured list or whatever, but yeah, maybe that adds to his value. Maybe that pushes him up the board a little bit. But I think he'll profile as a good starting guard. And Joe gave us a quick update there. He said, I thought he said Alabama. He broke up a little bit. That's why he asked. Well, sorry to confuse you, Joe, but no Bamas, not yet anyway. Well, we're gonna save those for later. But no. So why do you only have 2 centers? And why is Fortner your second-rated center ahead of guys like Alec Lindstrom, Donovan West, Cameron Jurgens? And Jurgens is a name that's really been rising throughout this pre-draft process. The center from Nebraska. I have him in my top 100 at this point, and I could very well see him going in the top 100 when the draft rolls around. So why aren't those guys listed here?
Yeah, I got Jurgens at 139, and I have Donovan West at 107 on my last big board, which came out maybe close to a month ago at this point. Those guys will probably be moving up, but right now I like Fortner because I feel very comfortable with his floor. I mean, he's as a floor as a prospect, he's very smart. He's not a super elite athlete in any way. But I just think that he's going to be a consistent player who's going to be able to start for you. And I think that floor is what gives me the belief that he's going to be able to stay there. Someone like Jurgens, who's going to be a little bit more athletic, a little more powerful, perhaps, than someone like Fortner. I do have a little bit more concern with him, his game, maybe a little bit more of a variance in his game. Donovan West, I'll be honest, I haven't spent a ton of time studying Donovan West yet, so I can't really give you a clear profile on him.
Okay.
But I like Fortner a lot. I've seen more exposure to Fortner, frankly, from just the various pre-draft process that he's gone through, the various appearances he's made on the All-Star circuit. So I feel more comfortable with someone like Luke Fortner and where he's at as his game is right now, compared to some people like Don West, who I haven't spent a lot of time on, as I mentioned, and someone like Cam Jurgens, so I believe there's more variance in his play.
And there's a couple of interesting guys on your list as well that I actually have listed as tackles. And one of those being Tyler Smith, the other one being Sean Ryan from UCLA. Why do you have these guys listed at guard?
Yeah, for someone like Tyler Smith, my concerns with him mainly are a little bit of, one, I think there was a lot of holding penalties he had to deal with at Tulsa, and a little bit of tightness maybe in his hip, where he's not fully able to get to his landmarks and kind of beat the edge rusher there. He does a lot of power, don't get me wrong, and his hands can be really good when he can get into you. Mm-hmm. It's just that, again, I feel like there's some issues where he'll start his career at guard, and I think he'll have the opportunity to play tackle at some point. Sort of like in Elton Jenkins for the Packers to some extent, that kind of versatility, mm-hmm. where he kind of ends up playing tackle 2 or 3 years into his career. I could see that happening. But as of right now, for me to feel most secure about drafting him as a high-level second-round prospect, or even as a first-round prospect, because there have been some rumors about that. Mm-hmm. For me to feel comfortable with that, I'd be projecting him as a guard. If you're projecting him purely as a tackle, I would probably say late second round. I would not feel as comfortable with him in that kind of aspect. Because there are some, I'll say, some limitations in terms of his footwork and also just his mobility in the outside to be able to deal with both speed and power at the same time.
I totally disagree. Couldn't disagree more. And you know what? This is my second pineapples moment of the episode, okay? Derek is going to be very busy tonight, I think. This is already 2 appearances in 12 minutes. Well, maybe less after our intro. So let's say 2 appearances in 10 minutes. And both Derek and I are very disappointed. I see Tyler Smith as a top 50 prospect. I have him at number 47 on my board right now. His tape is nice. I love the physicality. I love the aggression. I love what I saw on tape. He's big. He's strong. I mean, sure, the footwork isn't perfect, which is why he's potentially seen by some as a guard, and which is why he's also not a first-round pick. First-round picks are typically guys with less question marks and, solidified positions or whatever. But with a guy like him, he's considered by some a guard. He's considered by others a tackle. I am one of those others. And if I need an offensive lineman, every team in the NFL needs offensive line help. Everybody, except maybe the Kansas City Chiefs, because they just overhaul their entire O-line. But everybody else needs at least one starting offensive line. Tyler Smith, I think you plug him in. I wouldn't feel comfortable at left tackle right away. I'd prefer him at right tackle, like a L. Collins type of offensive tackle. Big, strong, solid right guy. But I wouldn't put him on the left. If you have to put him at guard, that's fine. But I think, honestly, if you view him as someone who can play both tackle and guard, that only adds to his value. So if I know you were saying, if you're drafting him to be a tackle, you're probably dropping him down to the back end of the second round, maybe even the third round, if you're drafting him to be your starting tackle in his rookie season. But I think the opposite. I think if you're looking at him and you like him as a guard, drafting him knowing that he can play both guard and tackle, why not? I wouldn't be afraid to play him on the outside, even as a rookie, with or without injuries. I'm very, very pleased with what I've seen from Tyler Smith. And it did take me a little while to jump on that bandwagon. I don't like these late risers like that. Tyler Smith is one of those names that kind of popped up after the season. He popped up like right around the Senior Bowl. His name started getting some love. And then all of a sudden, he's a first-round potential pick, and teams are hot on his trail, and it's outlandish. That part of it I didn't like. But once I got into it, once I started watching the tape, I became a fan. Now, let me give you my top 10 interior offensive linemen. But before I do that, I just want to remind you guys that your top sportsbook comparison site is betting.net. And betting.net offers the extensive reviews on the best sportsbooks out there. So head on over to betting.net. Woo! All right. Now, I know you guys have been waiting, and I'm so excited. My top 10 interior offensive linemen: Tyler Linderbaum, Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Easy peasy. Darian Kennard, Salyer, Dylan Parham. I don't even know what number I'm on. What is that? 6? Yes. 7, Cameron Jurgens. Now, this is where it's going to get a little fun, because then I got Ed Ingram, the guard from LSU.
Okay. I really like him, so I'm good with that. I really like him, so I'm okay with that one.
Okay. So let's see. That's 6, 7, 8. 9, I have Alec Lindstrom. And 10, I was fighting between 3 guys. And they're so close for me that I literally have them one right after the other, split by literally hairs. And I got Chasen Hines as my number 10. But it was a fight between him, Cole Strange, and Zach Tom. And I went with Hines barely. And I said this on the last show. I've been playing with my rankings over the past bunch of weeks, and I've been trying to see, what other tape, what other scouting reports, stuff like that I can find on some of these guys, like a Cole Strange, like a Zach Tom. Because let's be honest, man, Cole Strange coming from Chattanooga, ain't a lot of tape on that man. You're gonna have to go to like YouTube or have to be subscribed to some legend Hall of Fame amateur scouts like Patreon or something like that, where you pay to use somebody's video logs or whatever the fuck. It's things like that get difficult. Crazy. Yeah, things like that get crazy. Looking for tape on guys like that. Very obscure colleges. Northern Iowas of the world, the Chattanoogas, Southern Utah, because I was looking for Braxton Jones tape. Braxton Jones, man. Anyway, we'll go back to the tackles later. But Chasen Hines got the slight bump purely because he went to LSU. The competition's proven versus Chattanooga and Wake Forest. Now, where I like Strange and Tom, one of the most athletic offensive linemen in this class, and he coming into the NFL, he might be one of the most athletic offensive linemen in the whole league as a rookie. Real athletic guy. That's his calling card. A little undersized in college, but it was nice to see him come in over 300 pounds when he measured up. So size concerns, none. He's over 300 pounds. He didn't look bad with the weight on or nothing like that. So he could probably stand to add a few more pounds of muscle, and it probably won't affect his game at all. So I can see why you have Tom where you had him. You had him ranked 8th of your interior offensive lineman. I have him right on the outside as my number 12 interior O-lineman. Which one of these guys, outside of the first round guys, which one of these guys really stood out to you in the pre-draft process that led you to put them on this list?
Well, two guys that you mentioned that I don't have my top 10, but I have pretty high. I have Cole Strange at 95. He's my offensive lineman number 12. And Ed Ingram, who I really do like, I have him at 102 at number 13 among interior offensive linemen. I was struggling with Ed Ingram, man. I wanted him to get in the top 100 so bad. I really wanted him in there. I just could not find room for him, no matter what I tried doing. But again, I feel very comfortable with Ed Ingram coming from that SEC level competition. Even going to like the Senior Bowl, because he'll do against Fedarian Mathis and against Devontae Wyatt at the Senior Bowl. I mean, this guy's going to come in. I think he has a chance to be a starter from day one, play starting snaps in his first year. So someone like Ed Ingram, who's not my top 10, is still a guy that I like quite a bit. And Cole Strange, I think, will be interesting coming from Tennessee, Chattanooga. Because Strange, I think, he had some good wins at the Senior Bowl. He didn't lose to the same guy twice pretty much. But I do think that power will be a bit of a problem for him. You saw it against Travis Jones in a couple of reps where he just kind of gets tossed around a little bit. And I think Cole, and I think he's been in college for 6 years as well. So he's going to be an older prospect. Mm-hmm. Some teams will consider that a knock. Some teams won't care for an interior offensive lineman.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I don't care in my
I don't care at
evaluation
all.
process. No, not for an interior offensive line. I don't care about
No.
that. But he's improved every year. His playing strength and his muscle have gone up every single year. He added about, I think, 50 pounds since high school up to this point. So I think Cole Strange is going to continue to improve from a strength perspective, but still needs to add a little bit more sand in the pants if he wants to hold up against interior offensive linemen at the NFL level consistently, or interior defensive linemen.
And ladies and gentlemen, and everyone watching the show, thank you for tuning in. If you're going to comment on the show, please use the hashtag sand in his pants. I think that's going to be the hashtag for this show. So we're talking offensive linemen and defensive linemen, hashtag sand in the pants. And I really hope that sentence comes out later. I might just sprinkle it in somewhere later just because I can. A little salt, I'll say salt in the pants, a little sand in the pants bay out here, sprinkle it on. But oh, sand in the pants. I love it. So let's move on. I'm done talking about interior offensive linemen. Let's talk about tackles, all right? Because this is the big money position, all right? I know like teams like the Saints love their interior offensive linemen, but tackles are the ones that get paid. Tackles are the ones that get first-round picks when you trade for them and shit like that. So let's go over the tackle spot. And since you started us off with the interior offensive line, I'll set the tone with the offensive tackles. So we're going to go 1 through 10 real quick, and then we'll jump to you. So number 1, Evan Neal. 2, Iggy Ekwonu. 3, Charles Cross from Mississippi State. 4, Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa. 5, Bernard Rainman from Central Michigan. I got Tyler Smith at number 5. Max Mitchell 6. Nicholas Petit-Frere 7. Abraham Lucas. Daniel Falafel. And this was another one I was kind of messing around with, but I'm going to go Sean Ryan. Throw my Chevy to the levy, but the levy was Rye. As my number 10 offensive tackle. Is that number 10? Hold on, let me see. I don't know how to count.
I think it was 11, maybe.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, okay, yeah. So Daniel Falafel, my offensive tackle from Michigan, was my number 10. Rihanna drops right out. He's number 11. And then Kellen Deesh was right there, too, for me. I like Kellen a lot throughout this process. And I mentioned Braxton Jones earlier, just for shits and gigs from Southern Utah. I got him in my top 150. He's a little further down there, but, just figured I'd throw another late-round name out there just because I can. And before we get to Sam's offensive tackles, I want to remind you guys that The Grueling Truth is powered by Betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. So head on over to Betting.net. Now, Sam, I gave you my top 10. Do you want to give me your thoughts real quick, or do you want to just churn out your top 10 and then we'll break these down a bit?
Let's do my top 10. We'll break it down a little bit. Like both of them.
All right, let's do it. Don't do it too fast because I do want to record these. So ready, set, go.
I think you and I have the same top 5, I'm pretty sure. It's Evan Neal 1, Ekwonu 2, Cross 3,
okay.
Penning 4.
Nice.
Ryman 5.
Rainman 5, okay.
Abraham Lucas at 6, but there's something I might change. I'm going to have one more big board before we get to the draft. I might change that one. But Abraham Lucas is 6. Kellen Deesh, I have it 7. 8 is Nicholas Petit-Frere. 9 is Daniel Falele. And 10 is Rasheed Walker from Penn State.
Rasheed Walker. Now, that's a name. Okay, so let me just edit one thing here so I don't forget. You had him at tackle. You got this guy at guard. Okay, so let me move this clown here. All right. So we got the same top 5. Pretty damn boring, but I think that's also pretty straightforward compared to what this class, is at this point. Evan Neal has been pretty much the favorite at tackle throughout the process. We know Iggy Ekwonu has been getting a lot of love lately, and with good reason. He's athletic. He's strong. He's a definite starter at left tackle. You don't got to wonder where he's going to play. Good run blocker. Could use some work on his pass blocking, but he's pretty much what you're looking for at that position as well. So even if you flip-flopped them and had Iggy 1, Neal 2, I wouldn't hate you for it. and I'm not going to put a pineapple out there for any of those top 5. But tell me about Rasheed Walker, my friend, because you have him as your 10th offensive tackle. Where do you have him overall on your big board, your latest big board?
I had 108, so I don't have a ton of tackles in my side top 100. And frankly, I think I only have maybe 14 or 15 in the top 200. Like, I don't have a lot of tackles very high on this draft. I know people are talking about this draft being very good for tackles. It's very good in the first 40 picks for tackles. And after that, it's kind of just meh, in my opinion. So I don't love the tackle depth. And that's partially because I have a lot of guys you consider tackles at guard. Like I took like Zach Tom and Sean Ryan and Tyler Smith and put them all at guard. So that might be the reason why I'm a little bit lower on this tackle class in general than some other people as the pineapple creaks in the frame. But yeah, Rasheed Walker. I think you have to go back a little bit to 2020 with him. 2021 was, I think, his worst collegiate season. But what I like about him is he's not like a true mauler or a true finisher in any sense in the passing or running game. But he's a very smooth operator who tends to just kind of, I guess, cradle pass rushers who come into him. He doesn't really let them get around him generally. He's got smooth feet in a sense. And he's got nimble feet enough to kick outside and just kind of follow guys. And really, like I said, doesn't necessarily finish them, but he'll be able to redirect their arc and kind of direct them around the quarterback, take a long looping arc, gives the quarterback enough time to get the ball off. And in this tackle class, which I said, again, I don't love that much. I think that's good enough to be number 10 on my board. I mean, consider some of the other guys out there are like Max Mitchell, who got tossed around essentially. Hashtags in defense. Got tossed around constantly. And so Max Mitchell is someone who needs sand in the pants at the next level from Louisiana. He's just someone like him. Spencer Burford, I liked a lot from UTSA, but he might be a guard at the next level. He is also someone who doesn't have fantastic playing weight right now. And there's a bunch of guys after that who I kind of think are a little bit raw and need a lot of more work on their technique before they're able to play at the NFL level. Rasheed Walker to me is a guy who can contribute as a rookie, maybe not as a star, but can contribute at the very least as a rookie, which is why I have him at 10.
See, now I have Rasheed Walker all the way down on my board. I got him at 146 overall. And where you said you're not really much of a fan of this offensive tackle class outside the top 40 or so picks, you saw someone float into the picture, okay? And that's this guy right here. And he's here. You know why he's here. Do I have to say it?
You're
You're gonna make me
uncomfortable.
say it because I'm disgusted. I need an adult. Pineapples, help. This is my cry for help. Yes. Right there. He's got sunglasses. He looks cool, but let me tell you, he's on fuego Benito sunglasses, okay? He's as disgusted as I am. Yet again, we've been disagreeing a lot lately. I don't know how I feel about it.
That's
I
a
like
good thing. That's a good thing, though.
I like it, but, I like this class, man. I think there are a lot of potential starters here. And I say that mostly because the starting offensive tackles in the NFL, I'd say are like half of them are pretty butt. Let's be honest, okay? There's
needs a lot of upgrades.
There's a lot of replacement level starters on the offensive line across the NFL. And replacement their top backups, like the top swing tackles and shit. There's some serious mediocrity there too.
My team has 2 of those replacement level tackles, and they're starting, and they're getting paid money to do it. So, trust me, I understand.
That's what I'm saying. You take one of these guys, and I've got. Let me see. So you said you had what? Was it 12 tackles or something like that?
I have 9 in the top 100, and I have 12 in the top. I have 13 in the top 150.
13 in the top 150. For comparison, just to give you an idea, because I do have Tyler Smith and Sean Ryan at tackle here. So I got 16 offensive tackles in the top 150. And I've got 11 in my top 80. And that tells you exactly how I feel about this class. Now, what makes you I want to find what the disconnect is here at this position, because your Steelers need, as you just said, could probably upgrade at both tackle spots.
Right.
the Steelers are probably hoping to take a quarterback in the first round. Yeah. At this point, that's what it looks like at least.
Yeah, that's probably what they're going for.
Okay. So with that in mind, assuming they go quarterback in the first round, they trade up, whatever. They end up with a quarterback. Okay. You wouldn't want Daniel Falafel or Kellen Deesh, whatever, or one of these guys in the second or third round and consider them a starter. Like, that doesn't stand out to you. That doesn't help improve this class's image in your eyes. Because let's be honest, if you can get a starting left tackle second, third round, that's a win. Because normally the top tier tackles, like you said, are either first round picks or top 40, top 50 guys. That's the way it goes. But I would feel very confident and very comfortable taking any one of these guys. Hell, honestly, even going into the later portion of my 150 board, because I've got Matt Waletzko, the tackle from North Dakota, as my last rated tackle at 149. And I mean, yes, sure. Is he perfect? No. Is he ready? Is he ready to be a starting left tackle week one? No. But guys like him have that athletic profile. He's got the length. He's got the size. He has good feet on tape at times, but that athleticism sticks out. And the position is getting more and more athletic every season. And we're seeing it even here. I mean, all these guys are not all. Let me not say all, but a lot of these guys are really good athletes for the position. So
yeah. Well,
I'm trying to find out where that disconnect is here.
Yeah, no, I think here's the issue. Pittsburgh, with someone like Kellen Deesh, Pittsburgh does not run the scheme that would take the best advantage of them. They don't run outside zone scheme. So it's not really gonna look great if you try to put him in the trenches and just try to have him one-on-one guy, someone in the run game, just run straight forward into him. Mm-hmm. That's not gonna be the best usage of someone like Kellen Deesh. Okay. So I don't think he fits the scheme necessarily. If you want to give me Nicholas Petit-Frere in the third round at 84, shoot, I'd take that. I'd be happy with that. Okay. But that's probably a better pick than Dan Moore was when he was taken, I think, in the third or fourth round last year. But I don't want to touch Falele. I don't want to touch him. He's got guard level mobility as a tackle, and there's no way you can play him at guard, in my opinion. So just how naturally high he's going to be in leverage situations. That scares the hell out of me. I don't want to really pick him. Let's see. Who else we were talking about? As far as Abraham Lucas, Washington State tackles don't project very well at the NFL usually. Lots of pass sets that aren't necessarily the ones you're going to get at the NFL level. Okay. Already going to be a below average run blocker just based on his film. And he has good moments in the running game, but again, not someone's going to get you a ton of movement as a run blocker. A smooth pass protector, obviously, which I would take. Like I said, I would take that over Dan Moore. I would. But for taking a tackle in the second round is going to be a one-dimensional guy when Pittsburgh already knows they want to run the ball with Najee Harris 300 times a year. It's not going to be what's going to help my team out personally. Now, if you want to say Tyler Smith's available in the second round for Pittsburgh and you have the opportunity to play him tackle, shoot, I would take that as well. Because, again, it shows you just how far out I am on Pittsburgh's tackles right now. Mm-hmm. But, again, like I said, these guys, as I mentioned, someone like Kellen Deesh is more scheme-specific for me. Falele, I don't really know if he's ever going to be a star in the NFL level. He's a man of a human being. I don't know if it's going to work. And it's not like Mekhi Becton. Mekhi Becton, I felt much better about transitioning to the NFL than I do Daniel Falele.
Well, that goes without saying. Mekhi Becton, for a man of his size, is athletic as hell. He's got real nice footwork. All right. His jump step out on pass blocking is one of the quickest in the league, even as a young guy, even tipping the scales at almost 400 pounds and being a fat, lazy piece of shit. He's still one of the more athletic offensive linemen in the league. So I don't know if it's really fair. I get the comparison. They're the same size. But like you said, Becton is athletic as hell. Falafel, not so much. Not so much. He has that struggle on the outside. So I don't know. We'll go back to offensive tackles at some point, I'm sure. But let's move on now. Before we move on, we are going to the defensive side of the ball for the first time. I'm very excited. we're going to go defensive line next, and then we're going to finish up with edge rushers, because I think edge rushers is going to be a very interesting conversation worth having, and you guys are going to want to stay tuned in for that. So before we jump into that, I want you guys to head on over and see for yourself that betting.net. It makes it easy to find all of the illegal online casinos and sports books in your site, in your state. So head on over to betting.net, and they are powering us on the grueling truth, where legends speak. And you're watching a couple of goats right here, so you're welcome. But let's go on to the defensive line. And you started the interior. I started the offensive tackles. Why don't you kick off the defensive line for me?
Yeah, number 1 overall, interior defensive line. Number 18 on my big board is Devontae Wyatt, who I think is going to be by far the best of the Georgia interior defensive lineman in this draft. But I do have Jordan Davis at number 2 right behind him, not that far down the board at 20. After that, a bit of a drop. Travis Jones is my 3. I got Logan Hall listed as an interior defensive lineman, which I might change. I'm not entirely sure on that yet. I got him at 4 right now. Perry and Winfrey at 5. Fidarian Mathis at 6. Matthew Butler from Tennessee at 7. Neil Farrell Jr. From LSU is my number 8.
Nice.
Zachary Carter is my number 9. And then John Ridgway from Arkansas, I have at 10. Get all those?
Ridgway. Got him. I had to go down the list a little bit because I had a couple of those guys listed as edge rushers, but okay. Yeah, no. Okay, so
now, honestly, just to touch on that really quickly, the more I look at Zach Carter and the more I watch him, I think Zach Carter would actually benefit a lot more from being lined up like over the tackle per se than on the interior more. So I'm going to go back. So I originally had Carter and Hall both listed as edge guys.
Mm-hmm.
I get the feeling I'm going to go back and try to label Hall as like a 3-4 defensive end and list Carter as an edge rusher again, because I just don't. I don't think Logan Hall has the pure power to be like a defensive tackle. I don't think Zach Carter has the sand in the pants, if you will, to be necessarily an impact interior defensive line. I think he benefits a lot more from being lined up over the tackle.
I love that. There it is. Don't forget, folks, hashtag sand in the pants. All right. If you're going to comment, you're going to share this, you got to put the hashtag sand in the pants. What was the what was the other one you said earlier? Oh man. If it comes back to me, I'll say it. A smooth operator. Smooth operator. Ooh. Sorry, I wanted to sing that song a few times when you said it. You said it, I think, twice earlier. I have it stuck in my head now. I'm gonna, when we get off the show, you know what? I might look it up on my phone and I might play Smooth Operator to play us out. All right? Play us out. What does that mean? Play us out. What is that? Play us out. Anywho, so a couple of names stick out to me, and I'm curious. I'm only guessing here, but I'm guessing that these two guys, at least one of these two guys, you probably list as an edge, but I'm going to give you my top 10, and then we're going to go back. So for me personally, this is one that I've been messing with as well, where you had mentioned Hall and Carter. Yeah, Hall and Carter as defensive linemen that you might put him at edge, and you're playing with that. I'm in the same boat with Javon Walker. And I say that because Walker's a guy who played literally all over Georgia's defense. And a lot of people do have him listed as an edge, and that's probably where his best position will be in the pros. But he is 6'5", 275, give or take. And I have him listed as a defensive lineman. So I'm going to have him 1, Jordan Davis 2, Devontae Wyatt 3. That's 3 Georgia defensive linemen in my top 3 defensive linemen.
It's ridiculous, dude. It's ridiculous.
But anyway, so I got them 3. I got Perrion Winfrey 4, Travis Jones 5, DeMarvin Leal 6, Josh Pascal 7, Fidarian Mathis 8, Alex Wright 9, and Matthew Butler 10. That being said, I am a huge fan of Neil Farrell Jr. from LSU. I'm so happy you mentioned him. and I'm a big fan of John Ridgway as well. And I do also like Thomas Booker from Stanford. So we're not too far off compared to like where we were with some of these offensive linemen, but also, again, good. We do have them differently ranked overall. So let's go back to your top 10 for a hot second, because there's a couple names that I mentioned that you did not. And actually, one of them I'm a little surprised, because I know we had mentioned his name earlier on one of our earlier shows, and you seem to be a fan of him back then. And I'm curious what changed. I'm talking about Josh Pascal, the defensive lineman from Kentucky. Do you consider him an edge? Is that why you didn't list him in the D-line?
Yeah, I got him listed as an edge right now, and I'll be honest, part of me wants to hype up this edge class as much as possible because I am a big fan of like this whole edge group. So I do want to see a lot of these guys played outside on the edge if possible. But something like Pascal is kind of similar to almost Cameron Thomas from San Diego State in the sense that he lined up in a variety of roles this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make the argument he can reduce inside and play a little bit different roles. I think we had a similar discussion to some extent with Gregory Rousseau last year about the idea that maybe he could play edge and reduce inside to some extent. Pascal, I think, is a little bit less of like a natural build to be a pure edge rusher because he is a little bit, I guess, heftier. You could say he weighs a little bit more. He primarily played over tackle or outside the tackle last year at Kentucky. He's not as like much of a wild athlete as a lot of the other edge rushers we talked about in this class. But I do consider him an edge for this experiment.
Okay, so that answers that question. But what about DeMarvin Leal, my friend? I know you don't list him as a defensive end or an edge rusher. No. The man's 290 pounds.
No, I actually did list. I did list him as like as an edge kind of guy because here's my thought process. I'm not a huge fan of ranking DeMarvin Leal because it's just very difficult to place him per se. Because he was amazing in 2020. Come back to 2021. And he is truly like the ultimate tweener in a sense where I could frankly play him probably as a base end and I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't love playing him on the interior defensive line either. At the same time, I recognize he's a very talented player. I just don't know necessarily where you want to play him. I do list him as an edge rusher because I think you might be able to play him more as like a 3-4 defensive end to some extent. Even though that's more, I guess that's almost an interior defensive lineman really at that point. But yeah, DeMarvin Leal is such a confusing guy for me because there's just so many. There's, like I said, a really talented player. I recognize that this guy's probably going to go in the top 2 rounds. I'm not ignorant to that. Okay. I just don't know where you put a guy who, from a weight perspective, for a defensive tackle, is in the 5th percentile. I mean, it's difficult to kind of place that player because he's not a unicorn from an athletic standpoint. So I can't really justify listing him as a pure interior defensive lineman because he just doesn't fit the profile from a weight perspective.
At 285 pounds, no?
No, I mean, no, I think it'd be I like the idea more of putting him on edge at 285, really. I do. It worries me a little bit with him playing on the interior defense line. I've seen smaller guys get blown back. And the one thing I will say could save him is arm length. It's 33-inch arms, just pretty good. Mm-hmm. I think that could help him out quite a bit in that kind of situation. But again, that weight is a little bit worrisome to me. If you're gonna line up that far inside.
See, DeMarvin Leal's, I think, one of the more polarizing prospects in this class because coming into this season, he was very highly regarded. All right, Leal was a name.
He was like top 5. He was like top 5 regarded. Like,
yeah, Leal was a name I saw in a lot of mock drafts in the top 5, top 10. And, I understand why. He's got the athletic profile you look for. He has shown more pass rush moves than some of these other guys. I mean, he's got more moves than even a Trevon Walker, okay?
Oh,
at least
sure.
At least he's shown that on tape. But he's not consistent enough. He's a liability against the run. And everyone's wondering what happened this year because his production fell off a cliff. Fell off like Owen Hart. I don't know what happened. It's really threatening.
Yeah, like let me lay it out for you. He had 32 pressures last year, and he played about 90 more pass rushing snaps this year, and he had 37 pressures. So at 90 more pass rushing snaps, he added like 5 pressures, which is not something you would want. Like, it's just not a big enough jump in production. He played over 200 more total snaps this year. And you could make the argument he's a more productive player in 2020. It's just difficult for me to deal with this. And again, it's alignments. I mean, he played in the B gap about 175 snaps. He played over the tackle about 50 snaps, and outside the tackle about 415 snaps. And like I said, I don't know. It's a chess piece. You have an exotic defensive front, great. But like I said, I don't know if it's going to fit most ordinary defenses.
Okay. Now, I will say one thing. I will agree with you that he probably is served best. If you're going to put him on the inside, it's got to be an obvious passing down. It's got to be third and long. Because if it's one of those where it's like 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 4 or something like that, where the offense can call a draw play real quick or run the ball real simple or something like that, he might get washed out because, like I said, he's shown to be a liability against the run. And I think that's one of his biggest issues. But he's a guy that it's been weird to see how things gone. Every year we see stuff like this. We see a top 5, top 10 potential prospect. Hell, Sam Howell, your doppelganger can be in that conversation as well, because he's another one. He was potentially the number 1 overall pick coming into the year. Him and what's his face from
Spencer Rattler,
Carolina.
Spencer Rattler.
Yes, him and Rattler. Them two were duking it out apparently, early part of the season and coming into this season as the top 2 picks potentially. Star quarterbacks, franchise type guys. Now look at him. One transfer to South Carolina because he's butt cheeks and has to get his career back on track. The other is going to be, he could be a 1st-round pick. I don't think he belongs. If the Lions took him 32nd or a team like the Titans drafted him at the end of the first round, whatever. It's quarterback. We know what goes on with that position. Hell, we've seen the, EJ Manuels of the world and Jake Lockers and JP Losmans and all these just wildly mediocre quarterbacks get picked in the 1st round strictly because of the position they play. It's that simple. So, yeah, Sam Howell could still be a 1st-round pick. But I think it's over for those for Leo. I think he's out of the 1st round. Honestly, I'm wondering if he's even going to be taken in the 2nd round at this point. All the talk
I got a
about
low
him,
2nd round grade on him.
It's been so negative when talking about Leo. Like, I'll tell you, I got him number 62 on my big board right now. And that's only because I feel bad. Like I want to buy 2020's tape. And I think when it comes down to prospects like this, that's what makes the process difficult, because Leo's a guy I think who would fit better either as a 3-4 end where he can line up over the tackle or outside the tackle, or as a rotational guy, someone who can play outside and inside in a 4-3 front, play strong side end in a 4-3 front, rotate inside to pass rushing defensive tackle on 3rd and long, stuff like that. But you don't take guys like that. That's a very niche role to play.
Yeah.
And you don't take niche role players like that in the 1st round or in the top 50, first half of the 2nd round. It doesn't matter how athletic they might be or how good they've looked on tape in the past. That's why guys like Derek Stingley is so crazy to talk about, because, even a Stingley, we'll talk about corners in our next episode next week about this to finish up our 3-part series of our positional rankings. So we'll talk about Stingley in depth next week. But Stingley, Leo, these are guys that had elite tape in previous seasons. Top 5 picks, both of them. For different reasons, they fell off. But that's what makes this whole pre-draft scouting process even more difficult, because you have to get to the point where are you going to – it's like being in a relationship. And the relationship starts going down the wayward path. You don't want to let go because you remember the good times. You remember the positives. You remember what they bring to the table that you like, that works with you. And then on the flip side, what have you done for me lately? You're arguing all the time. They don't take you out for pizza anymore. They don't touch your butt the right way. All sorts of crazy things that make the relationship go down that path, right? But you still try to make those excuses. You try to see the good. You try to hold on to that. And that's where I am with Leo. It's, damn it, he's talented. You've seen it on tape. He's got what you look for physically. But last year was ugly. The production wasn't there, and all these other things popping up. It's a part of the process. But let's talk about some of these guys down the board a little bit, because we know about Travis Jones. He's been going in this whole offseason. He dominated at the Senior Bowl. He's been great since then. We know about Jordan Davis. Don't need to beat that dead horse. We know about Devontae Wyatt, how athletic he is, the kind of presence he brings on the inside. Even Perion Winfrey, another Senior Bowl superstar standout who just dominated that week in practice and one-on-ones and whatnot, just went in. So we don't need to talk about those guys really that much. I want to talk about some of these later guys, the Fedarian Mathises of the world, the Matthew Butlers, John Ridgway, Neil Farrell Jr. That's my boy. So you have Farrell Jr. at number 8, you have Matthew Butler at number 7, and you have Ridgway at 10 and Mathis at 6. Okay.
Yep.
Where do you, who's the highest rated guy for you of that group on your big board? Your most recent big board. Who's the highest?
So we got Mathis the highest at 106, but he might move down a little bit, or it might move the other guys up. I'm still kind of jumping back and forth because when I revisited him, I think I remember talking to you about this on this show, perhaps ahead of the national championship game. I think it was expecting Mathis to make a more of an impact than he did in that game.
Yeah,
and the more I revisit Mathis' tape, I mean, he has 1 year of what I'll call for his position, elite production as a pass rusher, I'll say. He's got about 1 year of that. And the more and more I go back to it, the less and less I think it's going to transition to the NFL. He's just a little bit slower, and I think he's going to be more of a physically dominating presence against the run than a true pass rusher in a sense. I think he's going to be more of just a run stopper who occasionally can get home and create pressure as an interior defensive line at the NFL level. So I think it's going to be a little bit more of a reduced role than we saw him in Alabama, which is why I think he could drop back a little bit. That being said, if he ends up in a place like Tampa Bay or something like that eventually, somehow in this draft situation, where you got guys on the edge, you've got the ability to kind of move some guys around, play a little bit of a chess game with your interior defensive lineman, I think that could be a situation where you could get that pass rushing upside to kind of come through. But again, I feel like he's going to be more of a pure run defender at the next level than a help in the pass rush.
Yeah, my issue with Mathis, pretty said, and I'll add something a little different. For me, Mathis, his issue is his lack of his lateral agility doesn't show up often enough on screens, on zone runs to the outside. He can get got. Okay, he can get got. And I mean, I don't know how to explain that in other terms. I guess he can be had, all right? Because not everyone understands the terminology, you got. Maybe my New York people might, but I think anyone outside of New York may not know what getting got means. So I think he relies too much on his physicality, which you're probably wondering, well, Dan, you were talking about like Smith, for example, on the offensive line, how he's so physical, how that's part of what I like about him so much, and why a guy like Mathis, who's also very physical, very strong guy, why is that a negative? Well, it's cool if you're physical and strong, and it comes with some upfield speed, some agility, some pass rushing, which I don't really think he offers any. And I think that's compared to some of these other defensive linemen, guys like Leal, Pascal, Butler even, they're just more athletic. And that is what teams want. That's where you make money. No one cares about that 2-down run stuffer. That doesn't bring any value. Guys like Jones, for example. Jones is 6'3", 6'4", whatever, 330 pounds. He's a big boy, but he's not just a wide body. He's not just someone who's thick and girthy and just going to plant in the hole and have him clog lanes. He does that, and he'll blow
Yeah,
up
he does
plays.
that pretty well.
He's a big boy, but that's not all he's good at. He has that athleticism that you look for. He can make plays in the backfield, game-changing plays. I mean, we saw it at the Senior Bowl all week in practice, how he was just dominating whoever he went up against. It was pretty impressive
Literally
stuff.
throwing guys.
Grown-ass men, okay? Just chucking them aside like they're just a pile of dead leaves that he just cleaned out from his backyard.
I remember Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning tried going at him one time, and Travis Jones just like put his hand like right in his face. Travis Jones was the strongest freaking dude at the Senior Bowl, and Trevor Penning tried to get up his face. And Travis Jones said, "No, I'm not having it." Stuck one mitt on like his head, and basically was like, "That's it, you're done." Like that. That is the dude I would not want to like him. And Ridgeway was probably maybe like a second to me in terms of what I was watching, but Travis Jones was by far and away the strongest freaking dude out there. Like not even close.
Oh yeah, and what you're saying something because Penning is not a finesse offensive tackle. Okay, he's not a Luke Jokel type who's all length and agility and side to side with no push and no nastiness. Penning is a nasty big man. All right, and he was another one throwing guys around at the Senior Bowl. But you're right. The immovable object meeting the unstoppable force, and that was one of the big battles that was talked about during the Senior Bowl. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. But tell me about Matthew Butler from Tennessee before we move on to the edge rushers. About Matthew Butler, tell me about Neil Farrell Jr. because I love me some Neil Farrell Jr. Love that kid, and I think he's super underrated. And I want to hear your thoughts.
No, I agree. I think he definitely is very underrated. But Matthew Butler, basically 3 years of starting caliber snaps, although he saw a significant boost this past year at Tennessee, when it's really, you saw his most pass production he's ever had, pass rush production at the school. What I liked about him, especially at the Shrine Bowl, is he looked more explosive than I was anticipating. And I think he actually looked a little bit more powerful for someone his size, which is, again, he's not a big guy. I think he's 295, 297 pounds. That's not big for an interior defensive lineman. I thought he looked a little bit stronger than I was expecting. And overall, like I said, a little bit more explosive as well. And if you've got that, I really think, unlike Mathis, I think you could actually get Butler to kind of knife into the backfield a little bit and make plays as a pass rusher. Not to like a 10-sack per year kind of guy. He's not going to be that dude.
Right.
But I do think he can make plays as a pass rusher. You can count on him for that. You can play him on pass rushing downs, certainly, but also maybe even on rundowns, I believe. Because I think he does have, well, maybe not elite strength, or elite weight, he's going to be able to play at that level. I believe that he can actually anchor and play on running downs, which is something that I know maybe not everyone expected him to do going into the process. But I think he's more of a complete player with more high-end athleticism than someone like a Mathis right now, from what I've seen.
Okay, and now tell me about Neil Farrell.
Yeah, Neil Farrell. I don't understand why he has kind of like fallen off some draft boards entirely. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I was probably higher on him when the process began just because I watched a bunch of LSU games this year, and I came away feeling really good about him. Just because he's not, I mean, he's a man. Like, this guy is super powerful. He's not going to be very agile, like, at all. If you look at, like, his 40-yard dash, his 10-yard split, that kind of stuff is not going to show up and really be reflective of an elite athlete. But he is a dude who I believe has the power to sit down and just anchor inside. He's 330 pounds, 6'4". I think he's going to not necessarily provide a pass rush, but he's been consistently getting pressures for 3 or 4 years at LSU. Not like a high-end kind of pressure guy, but more than I would expect than someone like Fidari Mathis to an extent. I think he has the ability to move guys around and drive guys back into the backfield. And certainly he's going to be an elite run defender, I believe, the NFL lower, even more than Mathis per se. I know PFF gave him elite run defensive grades, I think in 2021 and he's either 2018 or 2019, but he did really well for them. And you see it on tape. This guy's going to be an elite run defender. Will he play every down? Like, he's going to be probably a 2-down guy. But I still think if you're talking about, do you want Jordan Davis in the first round or Neil Farrell Jr. in the third round? I mean,
same guy.
Let's play the value game here. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So I think Neil Farrell Jr. is a guy you could see going in the third round, maybe top of the fourth round. But I believe if you're talking nose tackles, or 2 down interior defensive lineman. Neil Farrell offers a lot of upside, and you don't have to spend that kind of a top 50 pick to get him.
See, for me, where Farrell falls in, I have Farrell. Now, as much as I love him, okay, he does have his issues, and he does come with inconsistencies.
Yeah.
So as much as I love his hand usage, as much as I love his motor, his aggressiveness, and his potential as an interior pocket pusher, he's one of those guys where I was talking about before, a nose tackle who's just a girthy guy and takes up space like a Jordan Davis type. I don't see Farrell that way. Yes, Farrell is a girthy nose tackle, but I see him as a very good potential playmaker. And one thing that makes guys something when it comes to upper echelon interior defensive rushers in the NFL, the best know how to use their hands. The effort is always there, and the hand usage is always there. And that first initial pop you get out of an offensive lineman, if you can control him with one hand, depending on where you line up, obviously, but if you can control the offensive lineman and make a move and make a play, that is where the value lies. And that's something I can see Farrell doing. But he doesn't do it enough. So that's why, for me, he drops down my board. And as much as I love him, you're right. It comes to the point where you're going to say, do I want to spend a first-round pick on this guy and Jordan Davis, or do I want to save that first-rounder for another position of need, an edge rusher, a corner, whatever, and then take a guy like this in the, say, 3rd round? I think that's a win. That'll be a huge win. I'll tell you what, as a matter of fact, if the Detroit Lions took this kid in the mid-rounds, 3rd, if he falls to the 4th, that's a win. That's an absolute win. He's that kind of guy. He's a Dan Campbell knee biting type of dude. And that's what I'm looking for. But before we move on to the edge rushers and close this out, it's been a long show. Thank you guys for sticking with us so far. I want to remind you, nope, not that one. This is the one. That betting.net is not just sports betting. Betting.net compares the best online casinos as well. So sit back, relax, and play the top online slots, poker, and table games over at betting.net. So let's finish things up. This went a little longer than expected. I get a little talky sometimes when I get excited. But let's finish up with the edge rushers. This is another one, a money position, all right? You started with the interior. I went tackle. You started us on the D-line, and I'm going to start us on the edge, all right? So 1 through 10, real quick. I think the top is going to be pretty straightforward for both of us, but we'll see where some of these names fall later on. I'm going to start with Aiden Hutchinson, 1, Kayvon Thibodeau, 2, Jermaine Johnson, 3, George Karlaftis, 4, Boye Mafe, 5, David Ojabo, 6, Arnold Ebiketie, 7, Drake Jackson, 8, Logan Hall, 9, and Kingsley Enagbare, number 10, with Myjai Sanders and Cameron Thomas right behind Enagbare.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's going to be a bit of a difference because I'm going to have Walker as an edge rusher, and you took Logan Hall and listed him as an edge. So that's going to be our difference here. For me, Aiden Hutchinson, 1, Kayvon Thibodeau, 2, Jermaine Johnson, 3. I have Karlaftis, 4, 2 spots ahead of Travon Walker. I'm not Travon Walker, guys. Travon Walker's my 5.
Okay.
I still got first round grades. I don't know what I'm saying. Ojabo, I've got 6. 7, I have Boye Mafe. 8, I have Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. 9, Nick Bonito from Oklahoma. And 10 is Drake Jackson. 1 spot behind him is Enagbare. So not much separation there. And then Myjai Sanders and Cam Thomas are the next guys up.
Now, let's start at the top. Hutchinson we know about, so we don't need to talk about Hutchinson at all. But Thibodeau, Johnson, Walker, Karlaftis, okay? I think it's safe to say that those guys are most likely rounding out everyone's top 5, 6 in the edge rushing. Depends on where you slot them, but they're probably up there for everybody, unless you list one of them as a D lineman or whatever, like I do. Let's just cut the shit, man. Travon Walker, okay? There's rumors that this kid's going to be in play for the first overall pick for the Jaguars, potentially to the Lions number 2. but no lower potentially than the Houston Texans at number 3. How do we feel about that?
I mean, I feel fairly awful about it, frankly. I mean, it's just
I got to do it.
I understand how much they love the physical standpoint, how much they love everything he did at the combine, testing on the 90th percentile or higher, and all these different things.
Elite.
Yeah, elite athlete, like super elite athlete.
Elite.
But I mean, come on, the guy does not have the production to really justify going that high at any point in college. I understand that because he was playing alongside all these other great players and the defensive scheme they had, he would never really had the chance to just go get the quarterback. But at no point in time do I see a guy who, when he actually approaches an offensive tackle, who has a pass rush plan in mind other than, let me just hit you as hard as I can with all the speed and power and see if I can run, knock you over. And if that doesn't work next time, I'm just going to try to go around you and just run completely around you and redirect to the quarterback. So I don't think he has a pass rushing plan. And frankly, he does not have the production against the run or as a pass rusher in college to make me think that he's going to come in and be an elite player right away on my defense side of the ball. Someone like Jermaine Johnson has 1 year of what I would call elite run defense and elite pass rushing this past season. I feel much more comfortable with him. I think he's much more of a finished product. He actually has pass rushing moves. And Travon Walker right now is just this big freaking athlete that has all this energy and all this potential and has no polish whatsoever. I don't know where would you even play him week 1? I don't know. I think you could just throw him out there if you're like Houston because you don't have players. You don't have NFL talent on your roster to some extent. So you can just throw him out there week 1 and say, go do things and see what happens. But
throw shit against the wall, see if it sticks.
Yeah, exactly. But with someone like Karlaftis, Karlaftis has been in this conversation for a while because Karlaftis has multiple years of being a good player in college football. Thibodeau has been this guy for 3 years. Aiden Hutchinson had one solid season before this past year, and he's the most complete edge rusher in this class. He has a bag. He's got all the agilities, per se. Doesn't have great arm length, but everything else checks out. And Travon Walker, I'm looking at Travon Walker, and he's the odd man out in this whole situation.
All these edge rushers that we listed, because you even listed Nick Benito, they all win in the pass rush better than Walker. Now, with a guy like Walker, this is not a fair comparison, but the one player that stands out to me with how high Walker's stock has gone thus far, because let's be honest, man, Travon Walker, even at his best coming into this offseason, a second-round pick, late first-rounder, because you know he had the athleticism. You saw that on tape. You know he had the versatility because he played damn near every position on the defense except, I want to say, outside corner and deep safety, pretty much. He played on the inside of the defensive line. He played on the edge of the defensive line. He played as a standing up outside linebacker, a stand up inside linebacker. He's covered slot when a running back or tight end's been out there. He's done a little bit of everything for this defense. And when people say his versatility is both a strength and part of the reason why his stats were so weak in college, I can jive with that. That makes a lot of sense. When you are, the jack of all trades saying, jack of all trades, master of none. He's a Swiss Army knife, but let's be honest, a Swiss Army knife isn't the best tool for every scenario. There's probably, there's actual tools and other things that you would use in certain situations. Not to say the Swiss Army knife doesn't have its place and doesn't have its value, but let's be honest, there's other tools for things that a Swiss Army knife does, and they do it better than what the Swiss Army knife provides. Same thing with Travon Walker. With this, like you were saying, Walker's a guy with, you're looking at some of these other edge rushers, Karlaftis, Johnson, etc. These guys have pass rush moves. They have counter moves. They know how to use their hands. They know how to maintain outside leverage. They have, it goes beyond the bend around the end. It goes beyond, how quick your feet are and how fast you are. When I think of this guy, when I think of Walker, and again, I said this at the beginning, this is not a fair comparison, but I think of Vernon Golston. coming out of Ohio State. Oh, so long ago, got taken by the Jets. I want to say 4th overall in
he
the
was
draft.
very high.
I want to say 4th. Don't quote me on that. Vernon Golson kind of slips out of everybody's mind, but Vernon Golson is one of the biggest busts in NFL history. The man had, I think, 1 sack or something like that in like 2 or 3 years with the Jets. He couldn't fall on top of a quarterback when a quarterback tripped over his own stupid feet and accidentally get a sack. This guy was so bad for all his power and athleticism and length, the prototype in every way. There's a reason he was such a high pick. I don't want to say that Travon Walker is going to be Vernon Golson because Golson flamed out and he was completely freaking useless, couldn't do anything on the football field, and then he was out of the league in a few years. I'm not saying this is what he's going to be, but I think it's a cautionary tale. It's something that teams are going to think about and they're going to have to really consider, because if you don't have a defensive coordinator, a defensive line coach, a linebackers coach, wherever you're going to play this kid, if you don't have a good coaching staff who can teach him, who can develop him properly, he's going to flame out. He's going to flame out quick, because in the SEC, in college, you can get away with your raw physical talent. You can get away with that sort of shit. You're going to beat these, college kids off the edge who are never going to sniff professional football. Okay, you can blow by them. Oh man, he blew by this Alabama offensive guard. Yeah, well, that guard's probably not going to be an NFL player. Stuff like that. Yeah. But in the NFL, you don't have those problems. Even the worst offensive lineman in the NFL is probably still one of the better offensive linemen in the country. Okay, so if he doesn't find his everyday position, he's going to struggle. The versatility is his plus, but I think it's also his biggest negative. And for me, I have him as a D lineman. You have him listed as an edge rusher. It is what it is. Thibodeau, are you buying the Thibodeau talk of lacking effort and being an off-the-field problem? Is that BS? Is that just smoke because somebody wants him to fall? The Jets want him to fall. The Seahawks want him to fall. Somebody like that? Or are you buying the talk? Because I'll tell you what, I'm not buying any of it.
No, I'm not buying it either. I think it's all smoke. I do think people are walking away a little bit lower on Thibodeau than they anticipated from his workout standpoint. And from just looking back at his tape, I think there's a little bit less usage of the hands, like less actual usage of the hands than you would expect or hope for someone like him. I think there's a little bit less bend than you would anticipate. I think he's got really good closing speed, and he's got really good speed for pursuit. I don't know if he's necessarily the elite athlete we were sold on, per se, going into this whole process. I don't know if he's going to be like that. Like, he's not Aiden Hutchinson, per se. I think Aiden Hutchinson is a better athlete than Kayvon Thibodeau. Despite the fact that Thibodeau's build was more of the – and I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but I think talking about from a defensive lineman standpoint, Thibodeau might win in a foot race. But Aiden Hutchinson, I think, is going to be better at cornering. I think Aiden Hutchinson is going to be better in smaller spaces, actually. I think Aiden Hutchinson actually is better bend than Kayvon Thibodeau. You're all out on that.
I'm out.
I had 3 on my big board. No, I had 3 on my big board. So I said all that stuff. I got Hutchinson 1. I got Thibodeau 3. I mean, it's not like I'm hating on Kayvon Thibodeau here. I think he's going to go a little bit lower than we anticipated. I think he could go lowest wherever Penei Sewell went last year would probably be the lowest I would say Thibodeau can go this year, because I thought Sewell had a chance to go top 3 or 4, and he fell down a little bit to Detroit, as you know. So that's probably the fall I could see for Thibodeau at most. But he's still going to be making a lot of money. He's still going to be picked fairly highly.
Yeah, I'm not getting on the Aiden Hutchinson more athletic than Kayvon Thibodeau. Thibodeau's one of the more athletic guys in this class too. That's just, you know what that is? I'm gonna tell you what that is. That's this. That's one of these. All right. Another one. How many times has Derek made an appearance here? You hear this? This guy.
I will say he's very explosive off the line. I'll give him that. I think he's probably a more explosive guy off the line of scrimmage than Hutchinson.
I will say, while I'm not buying any of this tomfoolery about Thibodeau, I will say there were a few instances on tape that stood out to me of him showing, for the lack of a better term, a lack of interest in what was going on. Probably because A, he knows how talented he is, and B, the opponent. One game that stood out was the Stanford game, where he didn't look like he cared at certain times. It was just one of those where I can't pinpoint a particular play, but it was something that stood out to me enough to make a note on my notes, to say, to put a star there and say, maybe look into that a little further, see if anything else stands out. And I mean, I guess one can say, not everyone's going to be running hot all game, every game, all the time. And if you're an elite prospect like Thibodeau, who even last year would have probably been a top 5, top 10 pick, you could get a little bored. I get it. When you're that damn good, if you're not being challenged, you could lose interest. It's not just like that in football. It's like that in anything, in everyday life, So I will say there's something to that, but not enough to drop Thibodeau too far. And especially not to drop him down to outside the top 10 or anything crazy like that. David Ojabo, where do you have him on your big board, your most recent big board? Because you have him as your number 6 edge rusher, but where does that place him?
I had him at 25 before the Achilles injury. So obviously the injury changes everything. Like the next big board I have, everything will be altered. I don't think he could go to Kansas City, I guess, in the first round, but I don't know. I feel more comfortable saying he's going to be a second round kind of guy at this point, considering the depth of this edge class. But Ojabo had sort of, I guess, I wouldn't say the opposite concerns of Travon Walker, but he had concerns in the fact that I don't think he'd be able to play the run very well as a rookie. I think he'd be more of a designated pass rusher as a rookie, sort of what they did with Jason Oweh a little bit in Baltimore, to some extent, or at least the plan they had for Oweh going into it in Baltimore. Because he's not going to be a great run defender right away. He's a little bit on the leaner, well, not on the leaner side, but he's a little bit smaller for an edge rusher. I think there's a chance he gets washed away initially by offensive linemen at the NFL level. That being said, he's got good arm length. He's got all the speed and agility you could want. This is an elite athlete. And a guy who's really new to the position. I mean, he has 1 year in Michigan playing more than 50 defensive snaps. He's a raw athlete. He's a raw player at this spot. And unlike Travon Walker, who's been in college for longer, or not necessarily been in college for longer, has played the position for longer, I think Ojabo has a more defined role, and he has the pass rushing production. We've seen that. He actually has produced against elite level competition, and he's got the production to prove it, whereas Walker does not have that pass rushing production.
Ojabo, I have him ranked number 33 on my big board, and that's just for, I guess, profiling purposes, because he's definitely better than 33rd prospect. Okay, let's be honest. When he's healthy, like you said, he's probably more of a top 15 pick. Top 20, absolute worst. Ojabo, I don't like. Going back to Nick Fairley at Auburn, okay? The stellar season Nick Fairley had his final season at Auburn. I'm pretty sure it was a Cam Newton team when they won the national championship. Coming out of college, he was a 1-year starter. I was not a fan of Nick Fairley coming out. I was repulsed, absolutely disgusted that the Lions took him, I want to say 13th overall, when there were much better prospects on the board at positions of need, actual positions of need. We still had Ndamukong Suh at that time, and the boys, the front office got a little cute, and they bet on this athletic guy. Oh, man. I don't think Ojabo is Nick Fairley. I think he's in the same boat as Travon Walker. But I have a few more questions with Ojabo, particularly the fact that besides his inexperience, he relies too much on his athleticism and his physical gifts. He's not that good in the run game. You wonder how much Aiden Hutchinson helped him and helped his production, because you have a potential first overall pick, one of the best defensive players in the nation on the other side of you, soaking up double and triple teams. That's going to help open shit up for you. And that's just, it's obvious. That's just the way it goes. So and then of course the torn Achilles, which just torpedoes his standing and torpedoes his ranking. But I think Ojabo is one of those picks where he's another one similar to Walker, where he needs to go to a team that has a defensive staff that can really help him grow and take him to that next level. But that's something we're going to I've thought about a lot with this edge rushing class. As I look at these guys and I go down the list and I'm like, damn, this guy has whatever questions, right? But he's long, he's athletic, he's got a quick first step, yada, 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 yada. You could say
there
that
are
about
a lot of athletes here.
You could say that about a dozen of these edge rushers. And I know we only we only listed 10 people, 10 edge rushers, but let's be honest, man. I've got 17 edge rushers in my top 142, something like that. And they all are, not all, but for the most part, these guys are crazy athletic. Drake Jackson, Ebikidi, Nick Benito, Amari Barno, Sam Williams from Ole Miss, Michael Clemens from Texas A&M, D'Angelo Malone from Western Kentucky. Like these are elite athletes, and it doesn't just come at the top of the draft in the first round. Like we're talking about like D'Angelo Malone or Michael Clemens. These guys could be third-day picks, third round, fourth round, fifth round picks, and they're among the most athletic guys in the class, regardless of position. So that's something that I've said a lot to myself, and looking at my notes and stuff like that. That's something that stood out to me a lot about this class, was the overall just freakish athleticism across the board.
And you also got guys in there like Tyreek Smith from Ohio State. I think Jesse Luketa from Penn State. I know he's listed as a linebacker.
Yeah.
After the Senior Bowl, might want to try him at edge, just see how it works. Might try him as like an outside linebacker and see how it goes. Because frankly, he looked really damn good at that spot against future top 50 picks at offensive tackle in the offensive line. So maybe someone like him. I have him at 143 on my board, so I've got him a little bit of a weird spot, but that's someone you might want to look at. Dominic Robinson from Miami, Ohio. I know that guy's got a little bit of steam going right now in terms of draft circles.
Yep.
I would even say like Christopher Allen, a guy who missed almost all last season from Alabama.
Yes. Yep.
That's a dude who is going to fly right under the radar.
Yep.
And has potential to be a really productive guy in the NFL.
He's actually my lowest rated edge rusher in my top 142. He's number 142.
There you go.
It's not because he's a bad player. It's mostly because of the injury and situation, and everybody else being so damn right. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, it's just a freaky edge rusher class this year. There's a lot of really good players at that position. And again, it will come down a lot to coaching, a lot to scenario. Like, make sure you're drafting into the right role. Make sure you've got people who can develop you, because you have guys who have such elite level skills. I mean, Kingsley Anagri with his length. Lajee Sanders came back at his pro day and is back up to 250, I think, or something like that. So he's kind of answering the weight questions a little bit.
Yep.
Where he can maintain that or not might still be up in the air. But he's the guy who's got like the same kind of closing speed as Kayvon Thibodeau in a sense. Like he can start on the backside of formation of running play and go right along the back of the offensive line and make the tackle for a loss. That's a guy who's got elite speed. So it's going to come down to just developing those guys. And let me tell you how many edge rushers I have in the top 150.
Here we go.
I had 20 in the top 150. I mean, that is like,
I got 19 in my top 142.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, it's insane. And I'm probably going to switch Logan Hall and Zach Carter back to being edge rushers. So I just jumped the number up again.
I mean, they're both edge rushers for me. I might feel squirrely and move Trevon Walker to the edge just because I can. It's my rankings. I do what I want, baby. But nah. So one last question before we wrap things up. We've gone a while. I want to thank everyone who's been watching and still watching. Thank you guys for sticking with us. I hope you guys have learned a lot of stuff. And I do want to give betting.net some more love here. So I'm going to go with this one. And betting.net finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes so you don't have to. Head on over to betting.net now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits. Betting.net sponsoring The Grueling Truth, where goats, legends speak. So one last question. Kingsley Enagbare, Myjai Sanders, Cam Thomas. Okay, South Carolina, Cincinnati, San Diego State. All three of these guys at one point or another throughout this season and the draft process have been considered first-round picks. Every single one of them have fallen out of first-round favor. And it wouldn't surprise me if at least two of them went in the third round or later at this point. Why have these talented young men fallen out of favor so bad in such a short amount of time? And before you answer, they've all had different reasons. So Thomas has had an injury he's dealt with that has prevented him from working out this whole process. Myjai Sanders had the whole weight issue. I think it was like 220 or something like that at the Senior Bowl, which was a huge fall off of his listed weight of like 255 or 260 or whatever it was. That was something that stuck with him. Kingsley Enagbare, for him, it was more, is he too much of a power rusher, not twitchy enough kind of guy? But where do these guys' value fall? Is it more towards the first round end of things? Or is it more towards like day 2, day 3 end of things?
Well, I feel pretty comfortable putting Cam Thomas as a second-round pick. I feel like he did fall because of the injury, not being in at the Senior Bowl, not really getting to show off.
Mm-hmm.
But he has 3 years of a star behind him. This year was by far his best, but even the past 2 years, he's been fairly productive. I mean, this is not a guy, per se, came out of nowhere. And he can play outside. He can play outside tackle. He can reduce inside if you want him to. I think he came in a little bit lower on the weight at the combine than they were expecting him to. But I still believe, he's going to be a really good defensive player. He can kind of move around and play a little bit almost anywhere. He's 267. So maybe not a guy you reduce inside too often. But I still think that's going to be an effective edge rusher who will go in the second round, possibly top of the third round, but I don't think he's getting out of day 2. And Enagbare, I think the concern with him is the explosiveness per se and the pure athleticism, because we know he has the freakishly like 35-inch arms or whatever, which are just, I mean, that's something you can't.
Sled man, fucking lanky.
Yeah, I think he's going in the second round because that, like I said, that's something you cannot teach. You just are born with that. So Enagbare is a guy who I think it comes down more to the agilities and the athleticism per se. And again, he's not like a super heavy guy. He's 258. He's actually bulked up and added, I think, maybe 8 pounds or so since the regular season. And if he can get to like 260, 265, play it that way consistently, that'd be a huge win for him. Because the concern with him was that he had the long arms, but he wasn't going to be an elite athlete, and he wasn't going to have a lot of power per se to like anchor against the run. Those were his concerns. I think he's resolved a little bit the power thing. I think at the Senior Bowl we saw he could win with. He would put that one arm into your chest and just walk you back. And I think that's kind of what teams are hoping to see him use that power and that length to his advantage, and he definitely showed that. And with regard to Sanders, it was just such a weird – people were asking, like, why would you even work out at the combine if you were sick and you were down that low? Like, why even show up? Because he came in at 228 at the combine. Now, like I said, he's back up to closer to 250, 255 now. But that's just something that some teams are not going to be okay with that. Some teams are not going to get over that. No. He's a guy with 32, maybe 33-inch arms, so not great arm length.
Nope.
And then he comes out and runs like a 4.67, when the whole thing with him is going to be his agility, his speed, all this athleticism. And he was still a good athlete, don't get me wrong. But he was not the elite level athlete people were expecting for someone with that build to be, to really solidify himself as a second-round pick or maybe a borderline first-round guy. I think he's going to fall in the back half of the second round or the top of the third round just because the perception of him has dropped off so much over the past, let's say, 2 months.
He's another player that if he's third round or something like that, he's another guy I would be more than happy if the Detroit Lions took him.
I would love it. If Pittsburgh got him, put him, TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith, had that as your three-man rotation as an outside linebacker, I would love that. Because I think Sanders is going to be undervalued at this point. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
He's probably a mid-second round level grade in reality. And he's going to be undervalued probably in the third round.
You know what? One final question before we wrap things up. Why it feels to me that we know teams value speed at all the positions, okay? We know speed and athleticism win out because in the NFL, all these coaching staffs think they can coach these guys up. Okay, I guess I don't know if that's the hubris of being at the highest level in your profession, where no one can say that they are higher in your position than you are. Where I don't know if it's hubris or what it is, where these coaches and these coaching staffs take these athletic balls of clay and intend to mold them into beautiful works of art. And, at least half the time it doesn't work out that way. And people lose their jobs because of that. And throughout this process, I've heard of guys like Kingsley and like Karlaftis, particularly Karlaftis, where he was a top 10 pick at one point potentially. And now we're talking he might be dropping to the teens, to the 20s even potentially. And the knock on him is that he's not twitchy, okay? That he's not that speed rusher off the edge, that his bend isn't quite right compared to some of these other guys. But that doesn't mean he's a bad prospect. That doesn't mean that if I'm picking in the teens, like let's say the Eagles, for example, and I need an edge rusher, that doesn't mean I'm going to bypass him because he's not a speed guy. He's still a damn good prospect. Why do power edge rushers and power rushers like that not get more love than they maybe should? Why does it seem like it's a knock on a guy that he's a power rusher?
Well, let me tell you about a guy named J.J. Watt. I think not J.J. Watt obviously is power as well, but I think people over time, especially the past 10 years, they've come up with this ideal pass rusher in their heads. And it's a guy who has some power ideally, but it's also a dude who's bendy, who can get around the corner very quickly. It's an athlete. They're viewing this through the lens of the guys they know have been uber successful, and there are definitely successful power rushers in the NFL. But it's a lot of the guys who have the bend, who have the speed, who've got the explosive burst off the end. It's a lot of those guys. And I think that's kind of warped the perception a little bit. On the other hand, it might just be the fact that the NFL in general, especially on the defensive side of the ball, like at linebacker, is trending towards the smaller, speedier guys as well. Like you don't see many 260, 255 pound like Mikes anymore, per se. Think about Devin White, Devin Bush, who unfortunately is in Pittsburgh. But you think about that kind of stuff. And I think that's part of the trend overall on the defensive side of the ball is to get smaller, get quicker a little bit. And it might be a response to some NFL teams per se, like some of the ways they get the ball out much faster now. Some of the various things they're doing in terms of like getting, even this year, like the Deebo Samuel effect where you're going to have now a receiver / running back or like a Cordell Patterson lined up in the backfield and do all this extra stuff. You're going to need someone fast enough to catch up with that guy necessarily in pursuit sometimes. The linebacker gets blocked off. But I don't know. I think some of it to me is just the trend in general that gets in the head of getting smaller, getting more agility, getting more speed as a whole on the defensive side of the ball, and that being a good thing to add all of that. Now, I don't necessarily think that's correct, especially in certain schemes. I like the idea of having more power per se.
Yeah.
But I think it's a combination of that general trend in the NFL and the idea that the ideal pass rusher fits all of these categories. And it's the agilities, it's the bend, It's all that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily the guy who's going to be big and just be consistently 8 sacks a year, like hold down, anchor aside in the run game. They're not viewing it that way anymore. They want the guy who can go out there and put I'll say the flashiness of it all, of the bend, of the agilities. They want to see that. They want to be blown away. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, just get a good player. Just draft the player you know is going to be a good pro.
Yep. It sounds
that's
simple.
Where I view it.
It sounds so simple, Sam. Just pick the good football player. It sounds so simple. It sounds wonderful, actually.
Yeah, but I do think there's an emphasis on like the Von Millers of the world, finding that kind of player, finding a guy who was like Chandler Jones was not the athlete Von Miller was, but to some extent he had a little bit of that in his game. They're trying to find that guy, and that guy just doesn't show up every year. And it's and it's not like not every player that's good has to fit that mold. So it's just a question of trying to manage your expectations.
It's a matter of overthinking also, because
that too.
We get to the point where we're in the part of the offseason where it's a few weeks before the draft. All the pro days are done. All the all-star games are done. All the workouts are done for the most part. All the major things are done. It's literally just waiting. But someone like Karlaftis, for example, that sticks out to me in this conversation, it's one of those where it's like, he's going to be a good player. May not get you 15 sacks as a rookie, but you know what? If I'm picking in the 8 to 15 range, I need an edge rusher. I'll take a guy who may not be the twitchiest athlete, who may not be the longest giggity, who may not be, it's all in the hips, right? It's all about the hips and the movement and this and that and all the fancy things. But sometimes, man, when you see a player, you know when a man is good, you know what to expect from a guy like Karlaftis. I'll take a Karlaftis. Get me 8 to 12 sacks a year. That's a win. Why not? I don't know. Just one of those things. Hashtag draft problems. Hashtag sand in the pants. Hashtag. Hold on. What was what was the song? Oh my gosh.
Oh, I forget now. Was it Smooth Operator?
Smooth Operator. That's my jam. Woo! You know what? I'm going to have to look that up on my phone. I have to blast that while I take a shower later. I'm so excited. So, that's that. I want to thank you guys for sticking with us. It's been a long show. We talked a lot of stats, a lot of info. This is what we do. Join us next week for part 3 in our 3-part series. We'll be covering linebackers, corners, and safeties. We might do some more hashtag sand in the pants, and I might sing another song or two. We'll see what happens. I think last week was Elton John or something like that. This week got Smooth Operator. We'll see what happens. I feel very squirrely on these shows. Sam, you're on Twitter. You got a website, a blog. Tell us both.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sam_Teats33, and the pinned tweet will take you right to my blog. It's on Substack. It's called Sports Talk with Sam Teats, where you can find all my draft rankings and all my draft articles and my NFL content.
And I didn't put this comment up before, but Donde está la biblioteca, Pedro? That's what that says. Something like that. I am on Twitter. I am on Instagram. It is at DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. Send us a DM. Follow us. We'll follow you back. Have any questions, comments, concerns? Send them our way. If you have a topic you want us to talk about, feel free to let us know. We will talk about whatever you guys want us to touch on when it comes to the NFL draft, football, whatever. We'll do it live. I'm Dan Kornhauser for Sam Teats. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the national championship tonight. Let's go, Kansas. We'll catch you guys next week.